Mainstream Mental Health Radio with Dr. John Huber.
What do you think you are, crazy or something? Well, you're not.
We're on a mission from God.
News, issues revolving around mental health. Dr. John Huber, a mental health professional for over 20 years, the chairman for Mainstream Mental Health, a clinical forensic psychologist, and a psychology professor at Texas State University. Breaking the silence of mental health, one day at a time, discussing the human condition, providing a sounding board for mental health issues, and making mental health mainstream.
You got a gift, my friend.
Now it's time for Mainstream Mental Health Radio.
Let the healing begin.
With Dr. John Huber.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mainstream Mental Health Radio Show. I'm your host, Dr. John Huber. Thank you very much for listening, as we all really appreciate it. We have another fantastic show for you today. And remember to check out our website at mainstreammentalhealth.org and let your friends know about our radio show. People can listen in and listen to our podcast at blogtalkradio.com, Mainstream Mental Health. Today we're going to look at some news stories that have popped up over the past week, and one of them that I kind of like, turns out that your good and bad moods are contagious, and I've talked with my patients for a couple of decades now and trying to get them to find patients when they're in a bad mood, find patients that are in a good mood, and to let them do the talking. Well, now there's some research that supports that. Breakingnews.ie, the world turns out your good and bad moods are contagious. Well, it's bad enough when someone at work starts coughing and sputtering next to you. In a week's time, you know you're probably going to catch what they've got. But now we have actual scientific evidence that suggests that we also catch bad moods off each other and good moods. And that's a good thing, because if you can catch those good moods, you can change your whole afternoon just by moving and migrating to people with those positive attitudes. These scientists found out that teenagers with a positive social circle actually were more likely to be in better moods. If you have also a negative social circle, you tend to be in negative moods. Now, what they're saying that the mood changes. It doesn't say you can, for example, catch depression. That is a lot bigger and a lot more in scope. But if you're depressed, you may pass on your depressed moods to others, but they won't necessarily become clinically depressed. They'll just have that bad mood now. And these researchers are all at Warwick University, and they use mathematical modeling on something called the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent to Adult Health. And this is a data set looking at the moods and friendship networks of American teenagers. And I'm really excited to hear that. I know I try to start my day off, and the people who come on my radio show and or interview me, they always ask how I am, and I'm always like, I'm amazing. And it's funny how when I do that, they start laughing, and then they're in a much brighter mood when we go on the air. So it's really interesting to see how that works. Another thing that's popped up, I have a little bit of experience with. I'm a father, and ever since Tom Cruise jumped on Oprah Winfrey's couch and started, touting that postpartum depression isn't real, which, by the way, is incorrect. Postpartum depression is real. And now there's evidence that says dads can also get postpartum depression as well. And it actually affects testosterone levels in the males that are experiencing this, the dads. And this was in the Washington Post, and it's titled, Dads Can Feel Postpartum Depression Too with Startling Testosterone Changes. So if you want to read the article, that's where you need to go check it out at the Washington Post. Essentially, postpartum depression has become much more visible, that we see celebrity moms now in these reality shows all the time. And also going through, before we had all the reality shows, we have, Brooke Shields, Drew Barrymore, Chrissy Teigen. They've all publicly shared their struggles and feelings of sadness and hopelessness after their childbirth. But now, when a father, for example, Adam Busby from the reality show Outnumbered, opened up about his own postpartum depression, he got instant backlash and multiple comments and on his social media telling him to man up. And I think it's all unfounded. I mean, the reality of it is when you have a child coming on the way, there's significant stress. You don't know, first of all, if the child is going to be 100% healthy. You don't know what kind of ramifications that's going to take. What if, the child is perfectly healthy, but when they're born, they have other issues, and maybe they're very colicky or high maintenance baby, more so than normal. And what if you have other children there? How are they going to interact with it? And these stressors actually compound on each other, and that unknown element can be very overwhelming. You could end up, stressed out where your short-term memory isn't working well. The long-term memory then gets impaired, and it becomes very problematic. So despite all this skepticism, the reality of it is postpartum depression in fathers is very real, and it's estimated that around 10% of men actually report symptoms of depression following the birth of a child. And that is typically double the rate of depression in men that aren't otherwise having children. I want to remind everybody now that we are listening to Mainstream Mental Health Radio, and I am your host, Dr. John Huber. 7 hacks that can make you ultra wealthy and successful. On CNBC.com, there is an article by L. Kaplan and talks about 7 mental health hacks will make you wealthy and successful. And by and large, the reality of it is our thinking, the way we think, affects our success physiologically and mentally. And that's why the uber successful understand the importance of mental habits and routines that have an impact on their wealth creation. Now, these hacks will not cause your bank account to magically grow, but as someone who went from $200 and no job to a millionaire CEO, the author of this article says, trust me when I say that the right shifts in your mental routines will eventually have an impact. So start making these mental shifts today. And what are these mental shifts? Well, first one is start thinking rationally. Step away from your emotions and take them out of the equation. The second one is take time thinking. There's even recent research that shows that giving yourself 20 minutes to 2 hours of quiet time to think actually stimulates new neural connections and new brain patterns and brain cells. So spend time thinking. It's very important. Then practice gratitude. If you're always the person who's thanking everybody, people are going to feel it. They're going to want to come out and help you on top of everything else. The third one, definitely practicing gratitude is something that I feel like is extremely important. Something that is just as important, though, is be a learner. Constantly learn new things. Move out of your comfort zone. Always expand your horizons. The next one, use a decision stream. And it's like a flow chart that helps you make decisions when you're going to move forward on certain questions and answers, or when you're going to turn down and not commit yourself that way. Again, the next one is push your comfort zone. If you're always learning new things, you're always moving forward, you're keeping a positive outlook on things, practicing gratitude, taking emotions out of the situation, it's a lot easier to push your comfort zones. And then think that your success is natural. Think that it's going to happen and expect it to happen. Now, it doesn't always happen when we want it to, and it may take you several years, but if you keep these 7 steps in mind, you'll be surprised how much they benefit you. And looking through these, It's easy to see where if you miss one of these steps, whether it's the very last one, thinking your success is natural and it's going to happen, pushing your comfort zones, not using a decision tree, becoming a constant learner, those types of things, you'll be surprised how once you fill in that one gap and start utilizing that in addition to the other ones, how much more successful you'll be over time. It's very important to keep that moving. All right. One of them that we're going to talk about today is kind of controversial. Smartphone apps to treat your depression. Now, treating depression when we know that a lot of people are becoming depressed, for example, when they're using their computers and their cell phones. So basically, we've talked about this before, increased screen time increases depression. And it kind of sounds oxymoronic to then use an app to try and treat your depression. Well, we're talking about mild depression here. We're not talking about full-blown clinical depression, suicidality, anything like that. But the New York Daily News has, in their lifestyle section, an article on smartphone apps to treat mild depression. And the research suggests that they actually can work, and they can help you cope with mild and in some cases moderate forms of depression, according to this study. Now, overall, the smartphone apps examined in the Australian-led research significantly reduced people's depressive symptoms, according to the findings published in the Journal of World Psychology. The apps designed to treat mild to moderate depression showed the most promise, period. The data shows that smartphones can help monitor, they can help understand, and help people manage their own mental health. And this can be very beneficial, I know from my own experience, when we have people who don't have very much insight into the triggers and the things that are causing them to fall deeper into a depression. So being able to manage that with electronics, which is objective, you can have specific boundaries put up there, can be very beneficial for helping a patient learn coping strategies and when to step in before they get all the way to the bottom of their depression, and they can intervene at that point. And this is also supported by the co-author, Jeremy Saris. He's from Australia's National Institute of Complementary Medicine. So using apps as part of an integrative medicine approach for depression has been demonstrated to be particularly useful in improving mood and tackling symptoms in these patients. And again, I think that's the key word. It's integrative. You're not just using the phone app. You're actually utilizing other strategies, including therapy and possibly medication, and you use the app to supplement and fill in gaps. And that looks like it's very, very successful, and I'm glad to see that. We've talked about telemedicine for a long time, video medicine, video therapy, and a lot of people are kind of resistant to that. And part of it is, you're only seeing the person over the screen and kind of limits what you can pick up on. But apps as a supplement may be able to give a level of comfort for the patient to be able to step away and then only work with the therapist as needed or take their medication and still get through the day. All right, again, I'd like to remind you that you're listening to Mainstream Mental Health Radio. I'm Dr. John Huber. Okay, there's so many things going on currently that are happening both domestically in the United States and globally around the world that without doubt it has affected all of us in a very stressful and crazy way. It's sort of like a whirlwind, a hurricane, tornado, thunder, and lightning storm with a taste of sunshine coming at us with a lot of force. And with our recent hurricanes that have struck the United States, I think everybody knows what we're talking about here. I want to mention a few positive words and some positive ways in dealing with this uncomfortable moment by providing some important tips. And morality is vital for everyone, for us to continue learning and holding our moral values. And within that, we have our author today, who is Alton EP at altonep.com. He's the author of Life is So Precious. And he is retired U.S. Army. He spent several tours overseas. And, you know, he will talk to us today about his combat experience and how that's affected his life and how he learned to overcome and deal with stressors and overcome things like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
I'd like to introduce Alton P. to the show. Alton, welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Well, Alton, there's a lot of stuff going on in our country right now that's kind of overwhelming, and I know I am kind of frustrated with some of the stuff that's going on, and as a psychologist, I know that a lot of people use things like sports to escape from their normal stressors in life, and now we're kind of not able to do that. What do you think's going on?
I think right now we are experiencing a very historical moment with our nation, and it's kind of putting us in an awkward position. And I will say, while I was in Iraq, because of sports, that really helped me to pull through my 18-month tour, because we were under attack 6 to 7 times a month. And sometimes you need that outlet or that outlier to refocus your mind and get you ready for the next day's activities. So sports played a very major and vital role. And without sports, there's no way of actually socializing with the country and around the world.
That's right, exactly. And
sports was very important.
Well, you know, I think what happens a lot of times, you know, people get wrapped up in their causes, and they don't necessarily see the ramifications of what they're doing to other people and other situations. And I think we're seeing some of that today, because I want to believe that these people who are sports heroes are not trying to disenfranchise our military. But I think I work with a lot of military patients. I'm right here in Central Texas with Fort Hood, and then we have BAMC and all the military bases in San Antonio. And a lot of them are very distraught and upset about this because of what you just said, that, you know, sports were their connection when they were overseas.
Yes, absolutely, because you need, like I said, you need something to just take your mind off of the pressures and the stresses of life. And I will say that the politicians and sports and everything else that goes on in the world, maybe they need to start focusing on more on outlets and outliers to get the job done. When you're under so much stress, it does do something to your mind. So you need something to kind of make you more giddy and make you more happy and just happy about life.
I can't agree more. I think you're exactly right. And, you know, what do you think are some solutions? What can our soldiers do? I have a lot of veterans who listen to my podcast, and what can they do in this instead of getting frustrated and getting upset? What do you suggest?
I would suggest taking a break from watching the news, not to be so glued in every minute of the hour, and just take a break and relax your mind. What I like to do is exercise, because exercising really stimulates my mind and my body, and it just makes me it just gives me this real burst of energy. It just makes me feel good all over, and it just makes you love yourself. And that's the most important thing, is just loving yourself all over again, because when you lose yourself, then that's when all these other issues start to arise, like depression, low self-esteem, and then you start doubting yourself. You don't have any confidence. So when you start focusing on yourself and just re-loving yourself all over again, it just gives you this burst of energy. So I would say to all personnel and soldiers who are dealing with these concerns and issues, is just take a minute and just love yourself. Do something that just makes you happy, something that nobody can take away, Because that's one thing you don't want anyone to do is to take away your joy and your excitement about life. And just, if you like to go hiking, hike. It's free. There's nothing out there that will prevent you from doing that. So just refocus yourself and just love yourself, as I do.
Well, and that's part of the problem makes it so difficult is they're trying to step away from it and they get involved and wrapped up in their favorite team, and then all they hear is politics, politics, politics. And that's a big change over the last 2 years, and it's a struggle.
Yes, I will agree it's a struggle, but I'm going to tell you one thing that everyone should know to all the listeners out there is nobody can control you like yourself. You got to stand in control, and you got to make a stand, and you got to do what's right for you because no one knows what's right more than you do. So whatever makes you happy, just go for it. There's nothing says that you can't do anything to make yourself happy, and that's why you got to be in that.
Well, I definitely agree with that. The only thing we really can control in our world is how we react to everything that's going on around us. And taking that attitude that, you're going to find happiness and you're going to find something that gives you pleasure and you're going to follow through with it. I think that's good advice. And it is a struggle, regardless of whether you actually have PTSD or not and whether it's from the military or not, trying to find yourself. And, at one point you were talking about, don't lose yourself. And one of the thoughts was, well, maybe I should have Alton explain to me what he means by don't lose yourself. So maybe this is a good place to ask that. What are you trying to get our listeners and people to hook up with or connect with?
Well, one thing I would like to say about not losing yourself, which is very important, is because I've been there before and I know how that feels, and that's a very, very dangerous position to be in is when you don't know who you are anymore. And the best way to try to gather yourself together is just stop. Stop what you're doing and just think about what's important to you. What makes you want to live again? What makes you proud? What makes you excited about life? And once you start to gather those items together, then you'll know the things that are important are just more important than just helping somebody else. Now, I'm a firm believer that charity begins at home first and then it spreads abroad. So if you don't have yourself together, how are you going to help somebody else make it?
I'm a firm believer of that, too. Got to take care of yourself first, and then you can help a lot of people.
Right, because you're no good if you're sick and on your back, because you're better when you're standing on your feet. So you got to make sure, you're proper health, good health, eating right, taking great care of yourself, exercising, just doing the positive things that just energizes the body.
I agree 100%. Now, are there any particular exercise? You went through a whole bunch of different things, but was there something that seems to work better for you? You focused in on hiking. I know for myself it's martial arts. What works best for you?
What works best for me is probably just going to the gym, socializing, and seeing other people. Also going hiking or traveling, or I'm a big sports fan, so I love going to the Warriors games in the Bay Area. I try as I can because we're number one right now. And those things are very exciting, and it just gives you a ray of hope because everybody want to win. And you need to understand sometimes we're going to lose, but you got to understand why you're losing. You're losing to win because you're not going to win everything in life, but to still come out on top after you felt like you've lost and been knocked down, that's a beautiful feeling. So that's what I like to do. I like to feel like I'm a win because we all are winners. I don't care if you come in first or if you finish last. We all are winners, and you have to believe that. No matter what direction in life we go through, you're still a winner. It's going to be bumps in the road. It's going to be those long days and long nights, but you're still a winner as long as you don't give up or let go.
Well, I definitely love your philosophy. Where can people go and listen to your message and find out more about what you're doing and what are you doing right now to spread this?
Right now, everyone can look up my book, Life is So Precious. I wrote a beautiful book, and you can read more about my stories. I have stories about collection of stories of my life growing up, 18 months in Iraq, dealing with relationships. I got a great story about Germany because I was able to see Germany, and it was very beautiful out there in that country. And you can just read and see where I come from because if I'm able to persevere after losing my mother 21 years ago, I lost my sister 7 years ago, and then in the midst of that, my dad walked away from us. And being the oldest of four, I had to keep it going. I had to keep it pushing. I couldn't give up on the four of us. So I was able to persevere through the losses in my life. And if I can make it through that, anybody can make it if you just don't give up. And what drives me today is my mother and my sister because they believed in me. So that helps me to continue to believe in myself. And that's most important for anybody to do is to believe in yourself because when others don't, you have to. And that keeps you pushing and it keeps you pressing towards the mark because we all have a prize to reach. And if you don't get to your finish line, that's your fault. But you got to understand that if you keep pushing to your finish line, you will get your prize. And that's what I like to compel to everyone and convey is not to give up and that it's not over, that you will win. I know it's going to be tough because who hasn't made it to the top of the mountain, didn't have a couple of slips and falls along the way. That's natural and it's part of life. But if you still want to reach the top, you can't give up. So you can find all this information and all these unique, incredible stories in my book, Life is So Precious. And I'm telling you, it's going to move you and groove you. It's going to touch you. It's going to make you smile. It may even make you cry. But my main concept was to touch everybody because I care.
That's awesome. Now, hearing you talk and listening to you and your voice, it sounds like faith is an important part of who you are. And how do you see that playing in everything?
Yes, and that goes along with the belief and the confidence that we will persevere, we will win, and that takes a lot of courage. And that takes faith to not give up in spite of what's going on around you, because I don't care how many times the wind is blowing over your head, you can't give up. You just can't give up. The wind blows just to make you to see how strong you are. But you got to remember the wind blows and the wind is going to go. It's not going to stay there forever. So after the wind passes over, you got to understand you got to still be standing like a tree, strong. And that's what I really believe in, that you got to still stand after the wind comes and it goes. So faith is very important.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. Is there a website that my listeners could go and follow, or do you have email that you'd like to share or anything like that?
Yes, my email address is altonpete at gmail.com, and I also have a website, altonepete.com, and you can follow me. I like to share a lot of positive things with everyone. And that's my website and my email.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate it, Alton. I'm glad you were able to come on today, and I look forward to getting to read your book myself. And thank you. I really appreciate your service to this country, and I'm glad that there's people out there like you who are willing to do it. And I'm thankful that you're able to come out and help some of the soldiers and individuals who have a hard time dealing with this thing and can learn from your experience. I really appreciate that.
That's right. You can pick my book up at Barnes & Nobles and at Amazon, and it's Life is So Precious. And it's a beautiful topic, subject, and it just lets everyone know that life is still precious, regardless of what's going on around us, even at the White House. As crazy as it is there this past couple of months, life is still precious.
It is. Well, thank you very much, Alton. that concludes our show today for our listeners, and I'd like to remind everybody to check us out and find out more about Mainstream Mental Health at mainstreammentalhealth.org, and check out our radio show on Blog Talk Radio, Mainstream Mental Health. Thank you again, everyone, and remember that life is what happens while you're making plans, so buckle up.
Thanks for listening to Mainstream Mental Health Radio with your host, Dr. John Huber. Check us out on social media, Google+, Mainstream Mental Health, Instagram @Mainstream Mental Health, Twitter @Mainstream MENTL, and search for Mainstream Mental Health on Facebook. Please tune in every week to Mainstream Mental Health Radio with your host, Dr. John Huber.